The reading today is another story, another parable, and like any story or parable, has a lot of meanings to it. It's hard to pick just one to maybe focus on. And it reminded me of a story about a Southern Baptist minister who had a hard time with his congregation letting him have the right space he could park to get near the church when he had to come to it. He put one sign up that simply said reserve parking. It did no good. He put another one up a few weeks later that said reserve from the pastor. They still parked in it. He was getting frustrated. He decided maybe I'll use more of the scriptural thought. So he put down on the sign, "Thou shalt not park here." That didn't seem to do much good either. And then he found another one, and he put it on the sign, and it says, "Whoever parks here has to preach the sermon on Sunday." That worked. Preaching a sermon or a homily is really difficult at times because it means focusing and centering on one idea. Now, I had a lot of ideas from this gospel, so I thought I'll let you preach the homily to yourself. You do the sermon. I'll give you a thought, and you go with it in your mind and in your heart, for you know what you need to hear. Or at least God tugs on your heart to say, you should listen to that. Let's look at the first part of this parable, this story of the 10 who await the bridegroom. Now, the first part of it, you want to say to yourself, I don't understand why these wise ones are so selfish. Why don't they just share some of the oil? It seems so against the gospel. Aren't we told to share what we have? To bless others with the blessing we've been given? So why suddenly in this parable are those who are stingy called wise? Well, maybe there's another understanding, and maybe there's a homily in that for you. Maybe it is that these wise ones are simply stating that it's not that we say no, it's just impossible. It's about the oil of relationship. Do you have enough of that oil of the relationship with your God that you need? That's what we may pull from that part of the parable. And that means that I have to have a real relationship with the Lord, not one handed on to me. I am not going to achieve a relationship to the Lord by saying, well, I'm Catholic because my grandparents were or my parents are. It's not about a tag or membership. It's about a relationship. And I can't have that relationship unless I've been attentive to the good I can do, if I've been attentive to the way in which I've treated others, the time I've given away just for others to be enriched, the forgiveness I've not only accepted but offered in return. That's the oil of a relationship. And many of us are very low on that oil. That's why the wise can say, we can't give it to you. You have to have your own relationship. You've got to develop your own closeness to the Lord. What about us? What about the oil in our lamp? Maybe I need that homily. I need to sit back and say, I don't have much of a relationship. I'm not doing much to engender it, to encourage it, to enrich it, to develop it. Maybe that's the homily you need to preach to yourself. Or maybe a second part. It is curious that they put in the text, the gospel, the bridegroom is long delayed. Now, every little piece of a parable or a story usually has something for me to consider, think about, or reflect on. Long delayed. Here are these 10. They are waiting for the bridegroom. They have come a long time ago, and they have even, it says, all of them fallen asleep. So surely this bridegroom is not at all at the time they expected him. Now, what would we take from that? Well, I would look at that and say the oil in the lamp is really that oil of what I would say trust. Why do I say that? Long delayed. I want you to think about those ones who are waiting. They are expecting the Lord to come, the Lord, the bridegroom. They are long waiting for him. Now, what about you and I? We have all prayed for certain things, perhaps specific things in our lives, and it's been a long time. We've been praying for that forever, it seems. And it doesn't seem as though God is answering in the way I thought. I'm not hearing God responding to me. That is an important piece, isn't it? This long-awaited one. What happens when you've been praying for a long time and nothing happens? Some of us just simply give up. We assume God is not going to listen, not going to answer. God isn't going to be near me. Sometimes I feel when I have asked for some particular thing, or I've said to the Lord, Lord, I am carrying a heavy burden. Have you not noticed what is going on within my friendship, my family? So much brokenness, so many challenges. I am more than bent over in carrying this load. Do you even care, Lord? And I can assume there is silence. I can feel abandoned. I can sense that God is not near me. And so I begin to think God doesn't care. And so I stop even asking. I stop even wanting. I stop even believing that God is going to in some way lift the burden, help me find a way through this. Maybe I need that homily to myself that says, I need to fill up that oil of trust. The trust that says I can rekindle that relationship. A trust that says, wait a minute, God in many ways has loved me. In many ways has sent others to support me. In many ways has given people to comfort me. I need to rekindle, reignite that belief God is near me and God wants the best for me. That God is pulling for me. I need to rekindle, fill up that flask of my trust. That's the homily I need to preach myself. Rekindling the trust I need to have. How can a relationship exist without trust? Or maybe there's a third thought in this homily, and that is about the foolish ones, 5. I would call them less foolish and more risky. They are very risky people, these 5. At first, it seems they are foolish because they didn't bring enough oil. But I cannot believe that when they were sitting there, waiting, obviously, for hours, they didn't talk about with the other ones, how much oil do you have left? How much you got left, I can't believe they didn't share some thoughts. And then early on, they would have noticed they probably aren't going to have enough. Why didn't they go earlier? I would suggest they are risky. They are figuring, well, I suppose I don't have enough, but if I run out, one of them will give me some more. They're going to say to themselves that even though I have not got enough, someone else will make up for it. I want you to think about it in your own life. Sometimes I have known that this path I'm on, this behavior I'm involved with, and this attitude I'm developing is not healthy. It's not serving me well. I don't look honestly in my heart and see what that attitude, that action, that behavior, how it's destroying something in me. It's pulling me, emptying me of what I need to be filled up with. And so what I've done is I've just relied on others. They'll take care of me. They'll do it. They'll make up for whatever it is I am missing. That's risky. Because you see, just like with the 10, if the 5 foolish ones had said, give us some, then there would be no light. They're putting at risk even the wise ones. They would be asking the wise ones to not at all light a way for the bridegroom. No one would be served. And they don't care. This is about me. They're in risky behaviors. They're in risky lifestyles. They're not being honest. And they're not acknowledging their role and their responsibility. But they'll make others pay for it. I do that in my family. I continue in a bad behavior. I continue down the road that is not at all productive, but rather destructive. And I injure, I harm, I break the bonds of my family, my friends, and even with my God. Maybe that's the homily I need. I need to be honest and recognize how I've not been truthful about what's happening, and I've made others pay for what I've done. I need to change that. That's the homily I need. And finally, maybe it is that last part, and you would ask yourself, is this story, this parable just about death, meeting God at the end of my life? Well, certainly like any good story, it has many levels. And that is one of them, meeting God at the end. But there are others, and I think one of the important ones this story is saying is meeting God in your life, meeting God where you are. Look at these 10. They are waiting for the bridegroom. They expect the bridegroom to come. They are awaiting him to come into their life. We should have that oil of expectation. We should expect to encounter God in our life. We should expect to meet God somewhere along the journey of our living. But some of us, sadly, would say, I have never heard God. I have never encountered the Lord. I have never met God in my life. What is happening? God surely is not silent in your life. God is not absent in all that is being done. God is calling you and me to open our ears and eyes and see, experience what God is doing in my life. I need to reflect. I need to know, I need to expect, to encounter the Lord where I am. The Ignatian spirituality, and some of you I know have taken part in that, has a great part, and it says, excuse me, step back and look at your life. Examine it every day. Look and see where God is working. Look and notice what God is doing. Understand what God is saying. There's a Jesuit I thought had a great line. He was trying to explain to people how you have to look at your life every day and then see in your life what God is doing. But he had a great image. He said, well, I look at my examination, my everyday reflection. He said, I look at it as if that drawer I pull out in my kitchen. You know, everybody has one of those drawers in the kitchen. You call it the junk drawer. It's got everything in there. Now, you know what's in there. It's just not very well arranged. So every once in a while, you pull it out and you root in there. And you say, I know it's in here. And that's what the Jesuit was saying. At the end of a day, I opened that drawer and I said, I know God has been here. Now, where is he? I know God is in my life. I discover it. I uncover it. I need to know that. I need to spend some time with that. So I know it's not just meeting God at the end. It's encountering God at the beginning and the middle and today. God is with me. Maybe that's the homily I need. I don't take time to reflect, to see, to acknowledge, to know God's voice, God's presence. So you pick it. I gave you 4 homilies. Then you can park in that space that said, whoever parks here preaches their homily. Maybe next week you can preach.